This video proudly brought to you by the fine people at Housemade Industrial. Whether you're new to knife making or a seasoned pro, visit housemade.us to up your game with affordable quality gear. What's going on? Welcome back to the OG Frenchie. In today's video, we're going to be taking some leftover Damascus, cutting up some pieces, cleaning up the other side, and then using the Damascus for outer cladding to a gomai knife, or technically a sanmai with a shim. My idea for this blade is to use Damascus for the outer cladding. This is 90 layers of random pattern Damascus that I'll be sticking on the outside of the billet. And then for the core, I'm going to be choosing a dark etching steel, probably a piece of 1084 that I have. I've got this chunk here, which is, I believe, 3/16 thick. It's pretty decent thickness. So I'll be using this for the core. And then in between the core and the cladding, I'm going to be trying a new material. This is 201 pure nickel. And I've seen some blades made with this, and they look really cool. This is a material that will resist the acid, so when we go to finish out this blade and etch it, I'm hoping that we'll have a really nice dark core, which will be the cutting edge, and then you'll see a nice shiny line of the pure nickel that will separate the core and the Damascus. I've wanted to make one of these knives for a while. I don't know if you call that a gomai because it's technically 5 layers, or if it's a sanmai with a shim. Not really sure. But nevertheless, I am really excited to try to make this. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this. I don't really know what kind of knife I'm
Now that I'm here in the present moment, I know exactly what I'm going to be doing with this.
We'll see what size billet we end up with, and we'll go from there. Let's get into it. Alrighty, after we get the Damascus cut up, we then go ahead and measure, and just to see, how long the pieces are, and I'm marking those out on the nickel shim. This is a material that's really strange. It's really shiny and nice looking, and it's super thin. You can see I'm cutting it with scissors here. I was going to try to cut it with an angle grinder, and I'm like, wait a second, this stuff is so thin, I bet you scissors will cut right through it, and it sure does. So I'm really, really hoping that this material forge welds. I've never used it before, and I'm not quite sure, honestly, how to prepare it. I asked a few other fellow knife makers who have used it, and I kind of got mixed results, to be honest. So at the end of the day, I decided, you know what, I'm going to try to scuff it up some with the sandpaper, and at least that will hopefully clean off any sort of residue that's on the surface. Now, this shot looks kind of flimsy, like I'm just barely doing it. I actually took it to the table and made sure that the piece was flat and really went to town with the sandpaper. I also used acetone as well, as I do with most of my pieces of the billet prior to stacking them up. So hopefully with the combination of the acetone and the sandpaper, I can get this stuff to stick. And here I'm just showing some footage of cleaning up the other pieces, the core material, as well as the Damascus. Making sure they're flat, but also making sure all the forge scale is off. Once we do that, I take it out to the garage, fire up the welder, and I'm really just kind of tack welding this together. I do some tacks on the corner, and then, a couple of tacks in the middle of each side, and then I throw a piece of rebar onto the handle. Yeah, great shot, cameraman. Good job.
right, so here we are, 17 minutes, 15 seconds of being in the forge. And normally I would say that's probably getting close. I think I'll probably pull it out for the very first squish here in another 3 minutes. As you can see, my forge struggles to get up to heat sometimes, and it is right at about 1800 degrees. I am a little weary of opening up the oxygen as I want to try to keep a good atmosphere in here. So I've just found that by soaking in WD-40 and hanging out for about 20 minutes, that typically does pretty good. So I'm gonna crank up the propane a little bit and then we'll get to squishing. All right, so after the billet has soaked for 23 minutes, we're taking it out for the first press. Now this is typically super fast and very light. And as soon as I get the whole thing pressed at least once, I go with the brush and knock off any forge scale and really quickly just try to coat it in a little bit of borax. Now that step may not be necessary, but I like to do it just in case. And then here's another shot of the second or third forge welding pass, just to show you that I'm really not squishing metal or moving material. I'm really just kind of pressing all those layers together. Now, once the billet is successfully forge welded, we move on to the drawing dies, and here I'm trying out a new die, which is the ball hitch die. And this works pretty good to move the material in all directions. You know, it's funny, I take these clips and I email them to myself to create these videos, and I name the clips. That way I can remember what's going on in the clips. And this next one here is called Peekaboo Mama. And now you can see why. There's Miss Frenchie in the background hanging out, and oops, she just realized that I was recording and she tried to back away. I thought that was pretty funny. One of these days I'll get her in one of my videos, but for now we'll take what we can get. So after I get this thing pretty well forge welded and drawn out, I'm taking it to the anvil just to flatten it out and pretty much just planish this billet. And at this point here, I don't really know what I'm doing with the billet just yet. I'm really just trying to get it kind of smoothed out and uniform. And then that way I'll have a nice, clean, solid billet when it's all said and done. And after this last step of flattening everything out, I just take it over to the vise and cut off the rebar and kind of clean up that end that the rebar was on. All right, so now that all of the forging is done, we now have a beautiful billet to work with. It is about a 1/4 inch thick. It is roughly a foot long, and I would say it's somewhere in the ballpark of 2 inches wide. So, all of that work to reforge weld the Damascus to the shims, then to the core, I think we are successful. Now, when I first had this idea to attempt making a blade out of this material, I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to be doing with this. Now that I'm here in the present moment, I know exactly what I'm going to be doing with this. I am going to be using this material to be making my Hidden Tang knife for another upcoming Knife Makers Challenge. It's going to be for Eric Rivers with the Rivers Experience. He is hosting another knife challenge, and his challenge is the Hidden Tang Challenge. So I thought, hey, you know what? This would be a great opportunity to showcase my work as far as what I can do with metal and the knife. And it can also be an opportunity to try to push myself and make something that, number one, I haven't made yet. Number two, will definitely be a bit of a challenge due to its shape and curves and such. I have a really good idea in mind. I want to make my own version of a Persian fighting knife. If you know what that style knife is, then you know it's pretty curvy. It's pretty sexy. It's got some nice flowing lines to it. And I think that that would be, number one, a real challenge due to all the curves. Number two is just the fact that it's hidden tang. That can be a bit of a challenge in its own. And I think that's partly why he decided to choose that topic for his challenge. Getting the blade to line up correctly on your block of wood and making sure it's straight and not, off center or what have you. Fitting up the tang to your guard, those sorts of things. Those are the things that are going to push new knife makers to become better. So I have been thinking about this a little bit. I often will make knives, and I typically do 2-part videos for the full knife build. I'll do part 1 where I make the metal and part 2 where I work on the handle. And I gotta be honest, I like that style. For me, it works good. But sometimes what happens is I rush through part number 2 of the finishing work just so that I can complete it and put out a video. I am not going to do that this time. We have until the end of February. Today is January 7th. That gives me almost 2 months to complete this knife. And I thought it would be a really cool idea to break this build down very specifically and put out a video once a week and show you the progress or the intentions that I have on this blade 1 week at a time. I feel like that would be really cool. It would give you guys a video a week to watch. You could see more in depth of the actual build. I'll get to slow down and show you what I'm working on and my thought process of why I'm doing certain things and in what order. And it could be fun. It could be a more detailed way to be more educational in a thorough manner, if that makes sense. So I think that's what we're going to do. I'm really excited to give this a try. Now, 2 months is a lot of time to build a blade, but 2 months to make the blade that I want to make is not a lot of time. I have some challenges. Number one is it's in the middle of winter, so it's freezing cold. I don't have heat out here, and that's going to be challenging in itself. Number two is I really want to do a few things that I haven't done before with this blade that I know are going to require some extra time, mainly in fine detail work. So for those of you who know me and have been watching my channel, you may know that I am not the best artist when it comes to drawing out a knife design. In fact, most of my drawings are pretty primitive. It looks like a handle and a stick. I spent a little bit of time, probably a day, honestly, of drawing out this profile, erasing it, redoing it, cutting it out, putting it in my hand, seeing if the proportions felt right. So this is what I came up with. So there you go. There is the profile that I want to attempt to make. And I really like this profile because it has a sweeping belly to the knife, and the curves kind of come back up into the handle and curve back down. Same with the top. It kind of follows that nice curvy line through the front and the back, or the start to finish of the blade. This is the basic idea of what I want to try and make. Now I went back and forth a little bit with the handle and the guard. To date, I have not really made a intricate or highly detailed guard. I've made a few that have been okay, But this is where I want to focus a lot of my effort and energy into making something that takes it to the next level. Now, what do I mean by next level? Well, here's a great example right here. Here's a knife I did quite some time ago. The guard is just a flat piece of metal, and that's it. So at the time I thought, hey, that looks pretty good and I like that, but there's just no 3D dimension to this. It's just a flat oval of metal. Here is another example of a guard that I have forged. This was the little saber build that I made from a pipe wrench, and the head of the wrench I turned into the hidden tang, and the other head of the wrench I turned into a knuckle bow. Shortly after that, I tried making this guard, which is an S-guard for this medieval dagger that I made out of a metal file. And this guard is really cool. I dig this one. And the reason why I dig it is because there's a little bit more depth to it. It's not just a flat oval, right? There's a little bit of space to it and some 3D, so to speak, effect to it. I want to spend a little bit of time in planning out what I'm going to be using for the guard. I still don't really know just yet what material I'm going to use, but I want to incorporate the feel of having it be more 3D instead of a circle. A friend from work recently gave me this blade, and this is just something he had laying around his garage. It's a blade made in China, probably, but I'm just using this as an example as to what a guard could be. So you can see this one has a little bit more volume and depth to it. It's still relatively basic, but it does have nice artwork in it, through the engraving and stuff like that. So, it could possibly be something similar to this. I'm not really sure yet, but those are the kinds of details that I want to attempt to put into this knife. So now that you know the game plan, and I plan on trying to just film most of what I'm working on while I'm working on it, and then making a weekly video, hopefully you guys will dig that. Hopefully you'll be into that. So like I said earlier, I did draw lots of different versions of the knife that I want to make, and trying to, kind of fine-tune the lines, so to speak, and get it just how I want. This is roughly about how I want it. It may change a little bit. I was kind of messing around with the idea of the guard and such, and then I'm like, well, what if I don't do a guard? And this is how I go about designing a blade. I'm sure there's a better way to do it, but typically I just use a piece of manila folder paper, trace it out until I'm somewhat happy with the shape, and then I cut it out to see if the proportions are right for your hand, and to see, if things line up and feel good. So anyway, I know that this video was really just me making the billet, which may not be all that interesting, but I at least wanted to post it, kind of share with you my idea for the next couple of months, and hopefully you guys will agree that it may be interesting to see how it goes. So with the billet that we produced and the blade shape cut out that I want to make, you can see that for the most part, we should have enough steel. I'll have to get this situated, just right, and then I will have to put this back in the forge, knock down the edges to draw the tang out, but that should not be a big deal. And in fact, that's probably something that we'll jump into on the next episode. We'll finish getting the profile of this thing complete, and then we'll start talking about the different steps for thinking through the guard material and the handle material choice, and pretty much just lining up the whole build on a detailed level. Anyway, for this week, it's the OG Frenchie signing off. I will see you next week, where we're going to be working more on this blade. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully you guys are too. Really appreciate you guys watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.